I believe it was December 13,
What year?
in 1940.
Okay. You were about to tell me you were about to go onto the train.
Yes.
Go on. What happened next?
They loaded us onto trains. There were passenger trains. There were no passengers except the Jews that volunteered to go to work. The trains were not heated. It was cold. I huddled together with Pincus in one of the compartments, and I do not remember how long we were on the train. I don't think we were more than a day, or the most 2. I remember coming to a destination in Germany called Spiegelberg. They took us out and they selected me with another group and loaded us on a truck. And I was looking for Pincus. Pincus wasn't with me. They didn't select him to go with me. And I was really frightened. Here, I'm losing my friend. I looked up at him as my protector. So I was all alone. We arrived at a newly established camp. There were, I would say, 3 or 4 barracks, and there was a 5th one where the German commandant and his guards lived. That camp was established, like many other slave labor camps, to build the Autobahn in Germany. There were lots of companies that built the Autobahn. So each company got a stretch of a few miles of Autobahn to build, and they were assigned a slave labor camp with Jews to work. That first camp in Spiegelberg, I remember, we went first in to clear a forest. We cut down trees, we dragged the trees, and further into the forest, chopped up the branches, and that went on every single day to clear the road, the trees, to make the road. That was very hard work. I never did hard labor like that. It was late December or beginning of January of 1941. And it was cold, it was snowing. They didn't give us much food, but they gave us some bread and coffee in the morning. And when we came home from work, they gave us a pot of soup. I was in Spiegelberg and worked there till May of 1941. Then they said, whoever is sick will be allowed to go home. So I had caught a cold, but I wanted to go home. I was homesick. I was never away from home. So I said I signed up to go home. But instead of sending me home, they loaded me up to a truck and sent me to another camp. And that camp wasn't far away. It was, the name of that camp was Grunau. I stayed there for not very long, a few days, and from Grunau they sent me to also nearby camp, Zelschau. In Zelschau, I went to work also on a site to build the Autobahn. And that was a different company.
What was the company?
The company's name was Kunz and Company.
How'd they get that name?
How they got that name? I have no idea. That was the name of the company, a German company that signed a contract with the German government, I suppose, to build that stretch of Autobahn, and the German government in return supplied them with cheap labor, and we were the cheap labor. At that site with the Kunz, most of the trees had already been removed, so it was different work there. There we had to lay a line of railroad, and they had small locomotives. We had to dig and clear the road or fill in some swampy areas.
When was this?
That was in May of 1941.
Okay. Oh.
At that site, at the Kunz and Company, there was the chief engineer was a German man by the name of Franz Hipping. When we came on the work site, and he stood there, a tall man, heavy set, with glasses, had a stick in his hand, with boots. He had looked like some kind of a uniform. He looked at us and mumbled something under his breath and shook his head and looked at us. He asked us whether we had breakfast, whether we ate. Yeah, we ate our slice of bread a long time ago in the morning. So what are you going to have for lunch? Do you have? We said nothing. They don't give you anything? We said no, we get food, some food in the evening. Okay, so he put us to work. It was beginning of May, and it was quite cold. I remember there were snowflakes. So he looked around, called me over and said, "Do you know how to make a fire?" I said, "Yes." Well, asked me to chop up some wood, and I made a fire. He said, "You keep feeding that fire, make sure the fire stays lit." Came lunchtime, when there were German workers beside us, we stopped, but we had nothing to eat. But he made a fire so we can warm ourselves. That went on for a few days, and then they built like a hut for us, a special barrack. And then they had a barrack for the German workers, and they also had a special barrack for the chief engineer. And in the meantime, we had to fill barrels with dirt and unload them, fill them up and unload them at a certain spot. And that was my job at that time. I had to load up with the shovel the barrels, and when I got to the destination, unload it. So when I came to the destination, I grabbed the handles of the barrel, threw it up in the air, grabbed it this way, and turned it and emptied the barrel in one shot. Obviously, that chief engineer looked through the window and watched me work. So that one day he called me, "Hey, Junge, come here." I went in, I took my hat off and stood at attention. I was afraid, what's he going to do next? Didn't know. He said, where did you learn to handle that barrel like that? So I told him that my father in First World War, there was no work in Poland. He went to work in Germany in a munitions factory. And he used to tell us stories how he loaded and unloaded. And that's how I learned to do it. He told me how to do it. I took actually a tip from him, not that he told me, but I remembered the stories. So I said, how old are you? I said, 17. He said, for a young boy, 17, you work very hard. Then he asked me, are you hungry? I say, yes, Herr Hepping. He said, sit down. He barked orders to me. Sit down. He took out the Germans, had their sandwiches, they put in an aluminum holder, the shape of sliced bread. So he opened up, he had that container, opened it up, there were 2 or 3 sandwiches, dumped it on the table. He said, eat. Within 2 minutes, I gulped down those 2 or 3 sandwiches, and he stood there in awe, and he shook his head. Oh my God, oh my God. And I couldn't believe what was going on, that the German is giving me bread, he's giving me sandwiches to eat. Well, it so happened that man was a decent human being. After a while, he didn't give me money. He gave money to the farmer near the work site. But he gave me 2 pails and told me to pick another person, go to the farmer at 1 o'clock. The farmer will have potatoes, and they used to call it Pellkartoffel with the skin on. The farmer obviously had cooked the potatoes like he cooked potatoes for his pigs in a big, big pot, and he accepted the $5 from the chief engineer, and he agreed every day to cook 2 pails of potatoes. I went, picked up every day, lunchtime, and picked up from the farmer the pails of potatoes for the workers. And we couldn't believe it.
Which workers?
The slave laborers that
Right.
worked on the Autobahn, that were in the camp with me. And that went on for all the time that the chief engineer was there.
You said you couldn't believe it. Why?
I couldn't believe it because the Germans committed atrocities, what we heard. Not what we heard in the ghetto. When they came into the ghetto, they assembled us in the yard and they started beating the people. And it got around what was going on. Even in the beginning, we didn't know what we were facing yet. But we knew that things are not going to be good. And of a German to take his own money and buy potatoes and be surprised the way we are treated in the camp was something out of the ordinary. So that's why I was surprised that he was like that. Then at times he used to call me in and talk to me. He also didn't let me do the hard work anymore.
When he talked to you, what would he say?
He told me about his home life. He had no children. And I once said to him, you have no children. I say, I could be your son. He said, yes, Junge, it isn't so simple, you know. And he told me what his life was before the war. In fact, he told me he used to have a Jewish girlfriend. And whether that caused him to be nice, I don't know. But I don't think so. I think those things is in every human being. Either you're a decent person or you are not. And he happened to be a decent human being.
What was his name again?
Franz Hipping.
Okay.
That one time he called me in and he showed me a newspaper. And on the newspaper was a picture of a Jewish man, a young man, bearded, with dribbling from his mouth and nose. And he said to me, here, look at this. That's what the journalists, that's what they write that the Jews look like. I have here Jewish boys, men. They're hardworking. They don't look like that. And I looked at the pictures and I said, Herr Hipping, you won't believe this, but I know this man, and I did know him. He lived maybe 3 houses down the street in the ghetto. He was a sick man.
Who was it?
Pardon?
Who was it?
Who he was? He was a sick Jew, a sick Jewish man, a young man. And he used to walk the streets. We knew him. He had some kind of sickness, I don't know what. But he wasn't clean shaven, he wasn't clean. I don't remember whether he had parents, but he was, before the war, he was a sick man.
So,
And that's the picture the Germans took. And I told him that. He couldn't, he said, I don't believe what they're doing. Why don't they look at the people that I have here? Why do they do this? I say, you know what it is? It's propaganda, of course. Now, you know, the Jews don't look like that, and Jews aren't what they are being written about. You see, we are hard-working people.
what was being written about by the Germans?
That the Jews are dirty, they have lice, they never wash, they have sick illnesses, all kind of illnesses. They're swindlers. They're businessmen, and they don't like to work. Where did they get all that? I grew up amongst working people. My father worked all his life. My grandfather worked all his life. We never swindled anybody. But that's propaganda.
Do people believe this?
Some people did, evidently. Some believed it, yes.
So what do you think in light of why this was going on? What were you thinking?
And what I was
Or
thinking.
the propaganda, when you were reading it, what do you think about it?
Well, I knew there were lies, the propaganda, and there was nothing I could do about it. The only thing I could do is continue to be what I was, a decent human being. I was asked to work, I worked. So, in fact, we demonstrated in that camp to that Franz Hipping that we are not what the propagandists wanted the German people to believe.
So go on from working in the camp. You were
Well, from Zelschau, we moved to a different camp, Liebenau, and I still worked at that same work site with Franz Hipping. And
what was it like when you went home from the work site?
from the work site, we marched home. It wasn't too far. We came home. We had to take showers, which was good. They had special washrooms. And then we had to stay in line to get our soup. In Liebenau, at one time we had a decent camp commandant, the German camp commandant. We also had a Jewish camp commandant who was the liaison between the prisoners and the German commandant and the guards. We also had a kitchen where some of the prisoners were the cooks. And that German commandant that was decent didn't last long. There was came another one. And they used to march us out and then look at those inspectors to show our hands whether they clean. For any infraction, they used to beat us up and made us do all kind of things. The food wasn't enough in the camp. I was very lucky, one of the lucky people that survived, because of the food that Franz Hipping gave me. And also, he sent me to the village to pick up lunch for him from the farmer that he had rented a room. And the farmer used to feed me. The old lady used to have soup ready for me when I came to pick up the food for my boss. And she used to tell me, "Don't tell my daughter that I give you the food." I said, why? Why are you afraid? Well, she belongs to the Hitler Jugend, the German the organization you must have heard. And she wouldn't like if I was feeding a Jew. But something compelled her. There was some decency in her. She knew that I didn't have enough food, so she gave me food.
Do you remember their names, the farmer?
Not that farmer. I remember another farmer that I got friendly with on my visits to the village, that I was sent by my boss to pick up his lunch and cigarettes and other things. Another farmer, the name was Koschmiede. And they were decent. The farmers, most of them were decent people. The ones that I met, when they heard what was going on in the camps, what I told them that we don't have enough food, they used to give me bread to give it to my comrades. And as I said, I was very lucky. And because food was the main ingredient in survival. So I had enough food to help others. I had a friend. If you had food, you had friends. Everybody wanted to be your friend. So I used to give it to one. His name was Lupka. And I used to give him a lot of my food. I don't recollect, see how long did I stay in Liebenau. In Liebenau, I stayed till 1942, I believe. Also, Franz Hipping was transferred from that company. One of the workers, German workers, reported to the government that he was giving a Jew, he gave me rubber boots to wear. I didn't have my shoes when I wore them out. He gave me rubber boots. And he also gave me a bicycle to use when I went into the village. So that German reported him, and they took him and they sent him to Siberia to work because he helped a Jew. And he must have told them also that he was given the potatoes from the village that I used to pick up for the workers. So he left. And after he left, in Liebenau, my friend's friend became the Jewish camp commandant leader. So I had given him food before. Now I didn't have as much because Franz Hipping wasn't there anymore. So that friend helped me out.
What did he do?
Well, he received some bread from his friends, or he gave me some bread, some soup, and that sustained me, that helped me out. And we stayed in Liebenau and worked for Kunz and Company till 1942, sometimes. In 1942, we were transported to Finkenherd. Finkenherd was also a slave labor camp. And we didn't work on the Autobahn there, but nearby the camp they had a electric power plant. And they were expanding it, and they needed labor. So what we used to do, we had to dig and do some welding, carry pipes, do pipe help with the pipe fitting for the steam pipes to power the generators, not the generators, the, what do you call them? Turbines. And in fact, Finkenherd electric work supplied electricity to Berlin, some electricity to Berlin.
Where were all the camps that you were at located by? What country were they in?
In Germany.
So far, all of them?
That was in Germany.
How did you transfer from to Finkenherd?
We were transferred by a truck. Yeah. In Finkenherd, I worked for Seifert, a pipe fitting outfit. Now, Finkenherd, we came in we were 400 prisoners. In that camp, there were 2 German camp commandants. And they were very bad.
What were their names?
Pardon?
What were their names?
I do not recall their names. One, it sounds like father. His second name, father, like father. That's what I recall, but I don't recall the other name, one's name. Both of them were drunkards. They drank a lot. And they also, even the small rations that we got, we sometimes got some meat in the soup. But the German commandants used to take some of that, some butter or margarine that was assigned for us. They were giving it. They used to have girlfriends. They used to give it to them and their families, and they cut our rations.
Could we stop right here for a second
Yeah.
while we change tapes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.